Hey BookTube! Welcome back to my channel. My name is the Book Mage. So right at the start of this year, I set one of my yearly reading goals as being to read more series, finish and continue more series that I've already started. And there are a couple ongoing series I have where I only have one book left in the series, and some of them are my absolute favourite series that I have read to date. I have no excuse for not continuing them, which means in this video what I'm going to be doing is I'm basically going to be accountability vlogging my way through finishing 3 of my ongoing fantasy series. Due to that, there will be no spoilers in this vlog, so this will be a lot of vague reacting in the moment, but I definitely need to continue with these 3 series, and I feel like there's a very high chance of actually giving me some sort of feelings, which is not a thing that I have very often. The first of which should come as no surprise. It is Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. I started this series in I think 2019, I actually started this series I think pretty much the same day I went to meet Joe Abercrombie and go to one of his book talks. I figured it was good motivation for finally picking up the series. And now I have good motivation to finish this series. This is honestly a fantastic piece of grimdark fantasy writing. I feel like I don't really need to sing its praises because I feel like most people have already heard of this or have probably already read it. Normally I would give you a basic premise of what a story is about, but honestly, having read books 1 and 2, I could not give you an elevator pitch of what this is. It's so hard to summarize any of this. It feels to me I'm assuming all 3 books, when you put them together, are kind of basically one long book. So I feel like this is really going to be the make or break for this series because everything has been building to this book. It feels like it's all been a lot of very grand setup for whatever's going to go down in this book. So this is going to be my first read, and it is kind of chunky. I think the paperback is 650-ish pages, so it is a long one, but I'm hoping that means that there's so much room for just so much great stuff. I'm very excited. So this is going to be read number 1. Hey, hello. So ignore the way I look because I've just got in from work, and also the fact that I definitely blend in with the wall behind me. But it's time. I am so excited about this. I've been feeling really good about this. It is chunky. This is a bit of a thick boy, but I really am just finally ready to read the end of this series. I was thinking the other day, I was I know what's happened, I know the events. I kind of get where things are going, but if you ask me to tell you a summarized plot, still no. Yeah, I know there are other books in this world, but I'm so ready to just finally read the end of this series and see how it all wraps up. And it does say delightfully twisted and evil on the front there, so I have expectations. But yeah, I'm finally ready to pick up this series finale. I can't wait to see how it ends. I feel like I did have one thing which might be major, I don't know. I think I did have one thing spoiled for me back when I was reading the first book, because I went to a meet and greet, which I suppose is kind of fair ground for spoilers, but still, otherwise really excited to see how this turns out. I'm not sure how long it'll take me. The sooner I start it, the sooner I finish it. I'm hoping so much that I have many feelings while reading this. I feel like of the books I'll be reading for this vlog, maybe this one has the most potential, I'm not sure. And I don't want to jinx it, but if I was going to place a bet on a book having a high chance of being a 5 stars, I feel like this book has a chance. So I feel like that's enough said. I'm going to stop rambling and I'll keep checking in to let you know how I'm getting on with this. Obviously no spoilers, because unlike the people who may have spoiled it for me, I don't intend to spoil anything for you guys. Yes, very excited. Hello, so this is just a brief little work break to update on that. I'm about 50 pages, 50 something pages into this now, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I don't know what it is about this, this book of the 3 that is so different to the other 2 in that it feels the same, but my experience of reading it is I don't know why I'm just enjoying it so much more, which is very good for me because it means that my brain has latched onto the story finally. Not that it wasn't for the other 2, but I don't know what's different. I don't know if it's just because I was so ready to pick this up, I don't know, maybe it's just like good timing. I'm really enjoying the writing again this time round, and the writing's always been really good. But the thing is, I think both previous entries I've given like a straight 4 stars pretty much, or maybe like I can't remember if the first one was like a slightly higher, I don't remember, but they're both 4 stars. And like, I'm still optimistic that this could be a 5 stars. Like, if my enjoyment of the actual book, like just as it is, continues at like this level, that's looking good. And then I'm hoping when like the plot and events and things actually like come together, that might give me some sort of like book feelings, and that would also be like a 5 stars. So I'm still hopeful, which is a good sign. So yeah, very much enjoying it so far. I can't remember if I mentioned, but I've been going to like a lot of gigs recently, and in Scarborough at like the open air, that is what I will be doing. So not much time for reading, because I anticipate it'll be really late getting home. So maybe no check-in later today. Okay, so very quick update. We went to see Hollywood Vampires last night, which you'll have seen some footage of. My assumption had been that I would have like all day after work today to read and catch up on reading, because I'm really enjoying it so far, but I don't have time to talk about that. While we were at the arena, I went with my mum, and she pointed out that there was a band, The Cult, playing literally the next day, aka today. I may have also spontaneously got tickets to see them tonight, so we're going back to Scarborough, hence why I am getting ready. Oh wait, I don't have time to talk about this other than to say it's great so far, and I hope it's 5 stars. But now I have to leave again. Hello, so it is now Friday, I have finished work, and I'm currently on page 96. I have to say, I'm still loving it. I'm not as far in as I thought I would be, but also this is very dense. And given how my reading's been going lately, I suppose I could also say this is better than I thought I would be doing. Essentially because I've been to so many gigs this week, I just haven't had the time to devote to reading that I would have liked to. So I don't really know like what I managed to film over the past couple of days. My mind is a blank. Wednesday, so we went to Scarborough pretty much like I had a half day from work. We set off really early, went to Scarborough, watched Those Damn Crows and Hollywood Vampires, and it was great. It was fun. But like halfway through the gig, sort of like in the intermission, because I think I mentioned I went with my mum, because it was for her, it was like her band. That was on the Wednesday, and we noticed that the following day, Thursday, a band called The Cult was playing, and so we literally sat like in our seats in intermission, like mid watching some bands, and we just sort of impromptu booked tickets for the following day to come back to see a totally different band. So yeah, yesterday on Thursday I couldn't really get like a half day at work like that short notice, so we finished like regular time, sped over to Scarborough, went back to the open air theatre, and we watched The Mission and The Cult, and they were fantastic. I think I enjoyed The Cult more, weirdly, even though it was like the one that we went to see completely just impromptu. I do know a few of their songs. I didn't know that I did going into it, but then when they started playing I was like, oh yeah, I know this one, and I know this one, and I know this one, so like maybe that's why I enjoyed it more. Also, the vocalist, so fantastic. Like, you look at vocalists like Vince Neil and like Axl Rose and you're thinking, maybe about time to retire. Not in this case. So yeah, that was a really great, just sort of, I think what I've learned is that I am ready to drop like a lot of money on just random last minute impromptu like concert gig tickets just at the drop of a hat at a moment's notice. It does mean that I kind of lost a day of reading, because I didn't expect to be doing like 2 gigs like back to back. So yeah, I got quite far when I first started. I can't remember what day it is. Basically when I first picked this up, I got pretty far in. I think I read like, yeah, the rest I've just kind of like made up since then. But if I'd been going at like that pace and not had other things to do, I reckon I'd be doing quite well with this. So I'm not mad about where I am because, I don't know, I've been having a fun time like listening to concerts. That's why I'm a little bit behind. That said, I am having a fantastic time so far in this. There's a lot of stuff that's been building up and it's kind of like they're all going wrong at once, and it's kind of like, yeah, you have this is now, and this other thing, this is also now, and this other thing, it is also now, and I'm excited to see what happens because it is happening now. I am very optimistic about how much I'm going to like this. While I did think I would have picked this up like already, like by this point in the year, I definitely feel like I've picked this up at the right time because I'm very into it. My brain's very on board with reading. These are all good things. That is to say, I feel like the next time I check in might have to be like a substantial point further into the book, and I'm also not anticipating to have any more like impromptu gig footage to put into this vlog. Yeah, I'm having a very good feeling about this one. So I feel like I've started on a high note. The other like books I have planned to read like in this vlog, who knows if they will. I don't know how you're gonna follow this, but we'll see. Hello, so time for a small update. So this is definitely not the most flattering of angles, but I look pretty rough anyway. So I am currently this far in. I think maybe I meant to say earlier, but didn't. I'm gonna put that down to the fact that I had like some weird back and forth busy concert days. But basically, there is some stuff that I've kind of seen building for a while. It's so close. It's kind of like watching a storm front roll in at this point where I'm like, not in a way where I really know how they're gonna go down. I feel like they're the things that like when I'm reading, I'm just waiting for things to happen. I don't know how soon. One of them is a thing that I kind of sort of got spoiled for at like the author signing that I went to a couple of years ago. I'm slightly salty about it, but like I can't be mad because like the environment I was in, it wasn't part of the talk. It was like other people talking very loud. It was like, look, my dudes, I'm on the first book still. Please don't spoil this for me. But yeah, unfortunately, that's just kind of like how that goes. What I will say is that is something that, because I kind of sort of half heard it, and I was like trying to tell myself like I didn't hear that, that's not what I heard, like I don't know this, but unfortunately I think I do know this. And then it meant that all the way through like book one, especially in book two as well, I was kind of like picking up little hints where I was like, I can tell that this thing that I keep seeing, that keeps happening, that doesn't seem important, is definitely like preparation for this thing that like I'm pretty sure is how this is gonna go down. I'm trying to be so vague about this. In my head I'm thinking like, if I hadn't known that, at what point would I have picked up on it? Because I'm on like page 136, and in one of like the last 20 or 30 pages that I just read, there is like a very obvious scene where I'm like, okay, I definitely would have at least picked it up by this point, and it still hasn't happened. So like I don't think that it's completely like, I just feel like it hasn't completely spoiled everything because I would think I would have cottoned on already. However, it just would have been really interesting to like realize at this point and then go back and reread like the first or the second book and be like, oh, now I can see like the trail of breadcrumbs. The other one, I'm so waiting for like this little betrayal to happen, and I've literally been suspicious since like the character that I think is going to be like a little sneaky snake. I'm pretty sure you're meant to like pick up on that. It's been like very overtly referenced. It like I think literally the character did even say out loud in this book in a previous chapter that they are going to betray the people that they're kind of like with at the moment. And I've been so suspicious since literally page one because I was like, they just give off little bitch energy. So that's the other thing I'm waiting for. Really enjoying it so far. I do just wish that I had all the time in the world to just sit down and like binge this, because like I feel like I got through like the first nearly 100 pages pretty quick, and I feel like I've read so much at this point, and yet I'm only here. It is a chonker, but it doesn't feel difficult to get through. Every single page feels so rewarding and so entertaining, and I'm enjoying this so much because like the writing is so good. This man does not waste any words. I just feel like every word is either like progressing the story or building the character, or like it's doing something. Every single word has a purpose, you know, and I feel like the ones that don't do that are just purely entertaining and witty and like great quotations. And so like it's a lot of writing. There are a lot of words in this book, but like you don't feel like any of them are unnecessary, and that's so rare. I'm only like 130, I'm on 136 at the moment, although technically I am halfway down 137. Again, and I don't like jinxing it, I'm still holding out hope that this might end up being a 5 stars, because I don't know why the other two weren't. I just think it's because I wasn't like... A 5 stars just has to hit. It just has to do something to hit. Do you know what I mean? But this book is hitting more than the others. I feel like quality-wise, it's definitely like 5-star quality. I just need there to be something that like hooks me in personally. I want to feel devastated when I finish reading this. If it does this, definite 5 stars. I feel like that's been kind of like rambly and ranty, and yeah, if I could, I would love to just like take some days off work and just binge this. I know for my brain that I will end up like, even if I did that, I would end up binging at least several hours of TikTok because of like my ADHD brain. But at least for the time being, I have the living room free, and we have this lovely comfy new sofa and some nice wallpaper. So this room smells very like, it kind of smells like a showroom at the moment because this is all brand new, but it means that I can sit on like a nice comfy sofa by the window and just relax. And we've had several thunderstorms over the past 2 days. Like I think we had either 2 or 3 separate thunderstorms yesterday. I woke up to the sound of thunder and rain and lightning, and in the evening there was so much lightning, and it was absolutely buckets of rain, absolutely like pouring it down. I would really just like it to do that again right now, so that I could sit in my little comfy chair and read this book to the sound of like thunder and rain, and that would be 10 out of 10. I don't think it's gonna happen. There are some grey clouds, so like that's my ideal reading experience, is rain and thunder and a good book, and this is so far a very good book. Okay, so I am now just over 300 pages into this book. I did end up binging quite a lot of it in like one sitting, and I'm still very much of the mind that still every word on every page is just, it's just fantastic. It's just fantastic prose, and none of it feels wasted or padding or anything. The quality of this book is absolutely holding up even this far in. I find some books tend to drop after you get past like a very well worked intro. Not in this case. So I'm pretty confident this is going to be fantastic all the way to the end. Saying that, I think I am just about at the halfway mark, and while I am really excited to make progress, I'm like, I wouldn't be mad if I had an extra 1,000 pages to read. One of the things that I really like when a book does is when it gets one over on me. Honestly, it gives me an emotion. Like, I will go through so many books and I will be enjoying them on some level, but I don't necessarily feel anything. I very rarely smile or laugh. There can be something objectively funny written down, but like, I won't laugh, I'll just move on. Again, I don't want to put spoilers in anywhere, but page 193 genuinely got like an out loud laugh from me. And again, the situation wasn't even that funny. It's just the way it's done. It's the way it's told. When there are perfect reasons for something to happen, and there's every reason that you can see something coming, but that it just takes you by surprise. Like, you're not anticipating it. And like, I anticipate everything. I tend to guess every twist and turn and surprise thing to ever happen, because authors just really like to put in too much foreshadowing, to be honest. Sometimes you've got to be told something a couple books ago and then just leave it. Just leave it. Yeah, if you have this edition, if you read this book, it was page 300. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It was page 300. I literally read it again, sat there with my mouth open, like, because I'd been thinking, when is this thing gonna happen in this scenario where it's very likely to happen? By the way that it happened. I'm gonna stop trying to talk and like be vague, but all I'm saying is there may have been some events in this book that made me have like actual human emotions. You know, getting a laugh out of me and then getting a genuine open-mouthed shock, disbelief. Yeah, it's, you know, back at the beginning of this when I was like, I hope that I can actually like feel something about this book. Again, I'm not like massively emotionally attached to any of the characters. Like, anyone could live or die, and I think I would be okay with that, do you know what I mean? But in terms of the events, in terms of the plot, so far it's just fantastic. Like, how often do I get this out of a book? Honestly, not very much, which is probably weird to say considering that like I love books and I read a lot. I just don't have reactions to them. I just don't. I feel like I'm heavily desensitized, or I see things coming a mile away. And like, I was suspicious. I was thinking, yeah, maybe at some point. I just didn't expect things to go down the way that they did. Safe to say, yesterday's reading session was a resounding success. I read well over 100 pages in a day. Like, I got to the halfway mark. After I got to the end of the chapter, just following page 300, I had to put the book down and go downstairs and rant to a family member for a little while, because, and like, when a book makes you go downstairs and try and get somebody else who knows nothing about the thing that you're talking about to like be on the same page as you so that you can rant about it, you know a book is doing something good. I'm just having such a great time. Can I even say it like that? Maybe we should say that I am being thoroughly impressed, which for me is high praise. Because unless you're a cat, very little impresses me. This may have been a brief update, but this, it's just, so far it feels like everything a finale should be. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop ranting. Once again, I'll check in later and like let you know my thoughts and my feelings, because apparently I have those now. Yeah, I'm just excited to see like what else this has in store for me. What do I even say? Yes, hello, you may have guessed. I finished it. Should I just get it out of the way? It's a 5 stars. It was so good. I know that I can't spoil this, but for anyone either thinking of picking up this series or partway through this series, all I will say is book 1 and 2, like book 1 is all set up. Book 2 is kind of like the start of some things. This book is just payoff after payoff after payoff, and I'm so excited with the way that it ended. I want to go on and read more from this series, and I will. I definitely will. But oh my god. Oh my god. Now, did it end the way that I thought it would? Some things I definitely saw coming. I definitely saw some things coming. And that character that I'd been suspicious of from, like, the start, I was right to be suspicious, but definitely not for reasons that I anticipated. So that was interesting. I kind of thought the ending might go down a little bit differently, but now knowing that there are, well, like 2 subsequent series, but mainly, like, I think, is it the Age of Madness? But I can totally see how much of this is also setting up potential for future books, which is why I would love to immediately go on and read more. Oh, I think I liked where all of the characters ended up. Again, I can't really say anything. There was one character who, they are like a major POV character. The way things ended for them, it makes so much sense, and it's so unfair that it is exactly the kind of thing that I would like to do to my own characters. While I hate it so much, I also appreciate it so much. I can't, if you know, you know. I know I've said I was kind of waiting for it to like make or break the series, just because the previous 2 books was just so much set up for everything going to go down in this book, and I feel like it delivered every single time, on every single front. in every single way, and I stick by what I said in that not a single word in here felt superfluous, excessive, out of place, unnecessary. Every single word, like, so often I will be reading, and I can be enjoying a book, it can be a fantastic book, but like, you know, ADHD bring me, I will either not necessarily get bored, but I will get distracted, or I will lose like my focus when reading, I guess. And I think sometimes you can be reading a book and like it can be good, the writing can be good, and like maybe the words on the page are necessary, they're character building or they're expository or something, but sometimes you're just thinking, oh my god, get on with it. Not this. Every single word I was so happy to read, and I feel like they all were purposeful. And I know some people think that this is a very verbose kind of series, and it is, and I kind of get that about the first and second book, but for this book it's just everything. There's not a single part in here that I thought, yeah, we didn't need this paragraph, or yeah, we didn't need this bit of dialogue, or yeah, we didn't need this, I don't know, 2 words on this page. Like, every single word I was so happy to read, and that is so rare. And I feel like this is a fantastically crafted book and a fantastic just end to this series. How often do I ever read a book and like the finale better than the beginning? I'm a first book kind of girly. So often I'll read a book and I love the first book in a series because I love beginnings. I love potential. And I like going back and looking at the characters and being like, oh honey, you got a big storm coming. This book was all storm. It was all storm. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. So 5 stars. I'm so glad I continued this series this year. Yeah, perfect. Perfection. The other thing I will say is, I, for very random reasons, went for just a really brief one-night stay in Newcastle. I promise this is related. So like, just looked around the castle, went to the Waterstones, and this trip was kind of like, it got rescheduled to this date. I was meant to see Ozzy Osbourne, he cancelled, we had to move to a different date. It ended up being this date, completely at random. The very first time I ever read Joe Abercrombie, when I was reading the first book in the first Law series, when I very first started reading The Blade itself, there is a vlog up here somewhere, I go to Newcastle to go to a book talk and a book signing with Joe Abercrombie in that exact Waterstones. And somehow, the day that I finish this book, I then go to Newcastle, which is the only time I've only ever been twice in my life, and then I go back to that same Waterstones. I just feel like that's a weird coincidence. But yeah, I now very firmly associate Newcastle with the first Law. This has been like the best start. Things are not over yet though. Like, I'm so still hung up on that book, but like, I know I need to keep reading and keep pushing through series because I really want to finish multiple series in this vlog. We go hard or go home. I realise I'm at home. So my next read, I already know what it's going to be. Do I know where it is? No. Do I have 2 copies? Yes, but do I know where it is? No. I'm already sat filming though, so like, you'll see it later. So my next read is going to be the finale in the Simon Snow series. Is it called Anyway the Wind Blows? Yeah, that one. So weird going from like epic high fantasy masterfully written to, what is this, like a low fantasy YA? But I do want to tick off this series. I do want to finish it, and I guess I will talk more about it when I actually start reading that book. But and this also counts as a vampire book, right? So bonus point to me. So I really don't have much else to say other than I'm gonna start reading that book, and I will, I guess, check in when I have some thoughts. For now, my brain is all first Law thoughts, so I'm gonna need to do something about that. Not that there's an issue, I have so many thoughts. Hello, so excuse the fact that I look awful. I did just come to update on the book, which blends in very well with the wall behind me. So I spent a good chunk of yesterday reading, and this is actually how far I am. Not that far from the end. Yet I am on page 367, which is not a bad start, except for the fact that I don't know if it's just this book or if it's me. This has genuinely never happened to me before. I don't really know how to explain it. I know what's happened, like I know what's been happening kind of like in each chapter. I know like where characters have been going and who's been interacting with who. But the thing is, there have been like several like new characters and like some, I guess, how those characters relate to each other or existing characters. And I'll be totally honest, I got to like, when I was picking this up again to read today, I was just thinking, who are these people? I have no idea how to explain this, but like I don't want to say anything about these characters or even their names really, because like I don't know what you would or wouldn't consider a spoiler. There was a new character that was introduced and they were talked about, and then we like met them in a chapter, and then other characters discussed them after that chapter. I literally can't think of a single fact about this person other than their name, and like I know like what they were doing where they met the characters on the page, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's like a really major point as well. I'm like, who is this person? I'm pretty sure it's like a really major point as well. I don't know why my brain has not stored any information. Like, I know what all the characters are doing. I literally couldn't tell you anything. It's like, if I use the Lord of the Rings as an example, it's kind of like if the Hobbits have already made it to Rivendell. It's like you've already met Aragorn, characters have talked about Aragorn, and they're about to set off from Rivendell with Aragorn. And imagine at that point I'm like, wait, who the hell is Aragorn? Like, and I just don't remember who he is or what he's been doing or how he relates to anyone. Like, and I don't remember anything about him. Like, I know his name, I know he's there. I don't know what it is about this book. I don't know what this book is I just read. I'm like, it's weird because like I know the other events that have been happening, but like when I try and think what the plot is, what's actually going on, I can tell you like what Penny's doing, I can tell you what Simon's doing, I can tell you what Baz is doing. I'm looking at this and I'm like, am I gonna have to like reread any of this? Because I just genuinely could not tell you. And I don't know why. I'm not sure if it's me or the book. I like, this has never happened to me before, so like I want to blame the book, but then I'm like, well, what about the book would have caused this to happen? A lot of the start, and like I'm getting off this topic now, I'm just going to talk about like things I do remember. A lot of the start did really irritate me, and like I was maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 50 pages in, and I was thinking, I actually don't want to read this. I would actually like to DNF this. Not because I want to DNF the whole book, I just don't want to read what this book is giving me. And I think a major point of that is just the... first of all, I don't remember either of the previous two books being like this. I hate the way that Rainbow Rowell writes. Why is her sentence structure like that? And I know the first chapter is like, I don't want to call it stylistic, it's just bad. It's like every single statement is a sentence. Like it's a couple of words. It's like maximum 5 words and then a full stop. And even places where it's like just put a comma. The first time we actually got a comma in a sentence, I was genuinely surprised. I was like, holy shit. I don't know. I thought I remembered the writing in Carry On being like decent to good. So yeah, I think it is just like her stylistic choice to write in just very, very short statements. But yeah, the thing that was mainly annoying me was just the way that characters are still interacting at this point. And like, I know this is a YA, even though it talks about cock a lot. I know this is a YA. I am expecting the characters to just be... I don't know, I shouldn't have to expect them to just act stupid, but they always do act stupid. And I've noticed that with like every YA, so I think it's just part of YA books, is that characters act pointlessly dumb for no reason. But the point where it started to really annoy me is characters having arguments, and it's the worst form of miscommunication trope, and I almost want to term it fanfiction miscommunication, because I tend to see this specifically in fanfiction, and it tends to center around like confessions and things, like when somebody's trying to get to a point and like character A is trying to say something, character B is constantly like cutting them off, finishing their sentence, their statement for them, and is wrong every time, like they have the complete wrong end of the stick, and character A is always having to say, no, I'm trying to say, gets cut off again, no, not that, I'm trying to say this, and then it goes on and on and on, and eventually character A will finally get to say what they want to say. But this book does that so freaking much. So many of the arguments are people being like, no, that's not what I mean, and no, I'm trying to say this, and I'm just like, just fucking say it. Just say it. Talk over the other person. Just say it. Just say it louder. Just get to the point. Oh my god, get to the point. So much of the dialogue is characters just being frustrated that they haven't managed to get to the point of their own dialogue yet, and I'm like, I don't know how to tell you, just get to the point. I'm so sick of reading page after page after page of back and forth dialogue where so much of it is just pointlessly delaying the actual point of the dialogue. And like, I know it's meant to be like, oh, they're bad at communicating, they're young, they're whatever, but like, there are other much better ways to portray like a miscommunication trope. And I said this about the last one. So much of the last book was all about miscommunication, and I do not remember what I said about the last book, to be honest. I can't remember whether I feel like it worked out better in that book. After however many years that they've been having these magical adventures, it's like, you think they would be able to communicate with each other better. And like, I know that this is like the whole source of the drama, to be honest, is that they don't communicate well. But there are so many better ways to actually portray that, other than when they try to speak, nobody ever actually gets to the point. I feel like that's the most dumbass way to do this. Like, it just seemed like a massive waste of time and pages. I would like the arguments to be about something substantial, other than just it's like, oh, if they never actually say things and they never actually get to the point, because their entire argument is about arguing the fact that they haven't gotten to the point yet, or they haven't been able to say what they're trying to say yet. It's like, so often in this, Baz will say to Simon to use his words to actually say what he's trying to say, and I'm like, yeah, me too, Baz. I feel the same way. Like, it still doesn't help anyone. People still don't get to the point. And, like, I understand you're going to have characters who are bad at communication. It's totally fine. But I think, as a reader, it isn't enjoyable to read the exact same failure of communication over and over and over again. Like, you can still make them not connect and not communicate well, but please just do it in a different way. Please just give me some sort of variety in the way that they fail to talk to one another. So yeah, I feel like the story I'm enjoying at the moment the most is what's going on with Penny, but I think that's just because I like Penny and Baz the most. I will say that Penny has been, again, a little bit annoying. Like, even she has it when she's talking to her mum at one point in this book, and she's saying like, Mum, I'm trying to tell you this, and her mum's talking over her, and she's like, no Mum, and then her mum talks over her, and then she's like, no Mum, it takes so long, and I'm like, that is literally the way every single character in this book interacts, and it's almost like, not every single character can't be exactly the same. There has to be some sort of difference between them. I don't know whether it's because that's just how people argue in contemporary fiction, and I don't really read this genre very much. Yeah, this is kind of a weird update, mainly because, like, I feel like I read so much, and normally I would update well before this, but also I don't know anything. I feel like I'm 2/3 of the way through, and I feel like I need to maybe go back and reread the middle third. Like, I don't really want to do that, but also I can't tell you what's happening. I think my brain just sort of like read it in the moment and then just decided not to remember it, and it's so rare that happens to me. It's like walking into a room and forgetting why you were in that room. That is what reading this has been like so far. That has literally never happened to me in my entire life ever before, and I'm thinking, like, what part of my brain was, like, my brain storing this information in that it has decided to just wipe overnight? Like, I put this down, went to sleep, woke up, none of that information was there. I remember where characters are. Like, I remember a scene in a library. I remember kind of why they went there and what they're looking at and, like, what they're doing there. Like, I know that, like, if they're looking for this piece of information, I know what they're looking for about that piece of information. I cannot remember what the conclusion of that was. I cannot remember what the result was, what they said about it was. Like, it's that sort of thing. It's like, I remember people going places for certain purposes. I just can't remember why, or what happened, or what they said about it. I'm like, okay, this is just, it's getting weird. So I feel like I'm gonna have to backtrack just to, or maybe like skim a few chapters just to figure out what's going on, because I don't think this book is on SparkNotes. So yeah, that's been an interesting experience. I can't tell if I'm enjoying this more or less than the second book yet. I think I enjoyed reading the second book more than I am this one, but I really didn't like the way the second one ended, or the setting. The first one's still going to be my favourite. I already know that I'm going to like book one more than I like this one. But yeah, we'll figure out whether I like this one more than the last one, or whether this is my least favourite of the series. I'm going to go back to reading, or rereading, apparently. Not like I wanted to make this harder for myself or anything. And I guess I will provide some sort of further update if my brain does decide to just crash and burn on me. Hello, update. This is maybe not the update that we want, but it is the update we need. I have finished, what even is this? I have finished Any Way the Wind Blows. I did have to go back about like 100 pages from where it was. I had to reread 100 pages, so instead of this being like, this is just short of like, is this like a 600 page book? Instead of keeping this a 600 page book because I reread those 100 pages, I basically read this as a 700 page book. So not worth it. I think a thing that I realised, like, partway through this book, is that I am just coming to this book too late. I really, really liked the first book in the Simon Snow series. This is when it was a standalone, and so like it worked as a standalone, and then I feel like this has been like tagged on the end, and I also feel like it was, I think it was said that this is meant to be the last book, but it without spoilers, it does kind of leave off in a way where it's like there could be potential for future books. I know in my like wrap up / review of the second book I said that she could come out with like 1,000 of these books and I would read all of them. I'm here to tell you that that is no longer the case. I think that this one was one too many, to be totally honest. And I have like 2 or maybe 3 editions of this. I think I have 2 editions of this, and I have like 3 editions of the second book. I'm genuinely thinking about just unhauling them at this point, because, and like not in a way where I didn't like them. I think I gave this like a 3 stars in the end because I'm really tired and I'm full of Chinese food, so like brain not working. Essentially it's fine, it's fine. I think I I'm just still trying to ride my hype and enjoyment of the first book, and that is just not what books 2 and 3 are. And I thought being back in England and back at Watford would be like fun for me, but it's just not. I think I've just discovered that I don't really enjoy what these books are, and that it's just the disconnect between me and the book. It's not that the books are bad, it's just that I think I have moved on and just not realised I've moved on. Like, I enjoyed the first one and I would reread the first one, but I don't think I would ever reread the second one, and I will definitely never reread the third one. And it's not because it was bad, it's just because it wasn't for me. And I feel like I can accept that there is nothing wrong with this book, it just isn't for me. I am no longer the target audience for this book. If this had come out back in like 2018 and I'd been able to read them back to back, I might have enjoyed them all, because I think I would have still been like super like on the high of reading that first book. But as it is though, it's like, I'm so sorry, it's 2023. I'm so over it. I'm so over it. Coming to the realization that I think I am going to unhaul. I might keep like one nice edition of each one, but I honestly might just keep book 1. We'll have to see. And it wasn't like a, oh, I need to get rid of these. It was kind of just like a, I just kind of realized in a very like unemotional and like just chill kind of way that I'm like, I don't actually need these, you know? It's like I just don't care. I think I am glad that I read this, and if any more come out in this series, I will not be buying them. I will not be reading them, because I am just done with the story that it's trying to tell. I liked the first one, and I think it's because the first one felt so derivative and so fanficky, but I liked that about it. I don't know, I just don't really vibe with, I guess, what the characters are going through, and I think it's just because it's a contemporary. Like, this is a contemporary book with contemporary kind of characters, and you know, the big things about it is like everyone has to be obviously paired off in a romance, like, because that's what contemporary books do. You know, a YA contemporary is like, okay, but everyone has to have their own little romance thing going on in the background. It's like, I don't really care at this point, you know? And there is a plot there, but again, this is like low fantasy for people who read YA contemporary novels, whereas I am someone who reads adult fantasy, and I'm coming into this because of the fantasy element. I am not coming here for what the contemporary readers are coming here for, and it's not that you can't enjoy both, it's just that this book is clearly catered towards one more than the other, and it just isn't me, and like, that's fine. So I'm glad that I finished this series, because there's no more at the moment, so like, and I kind of hope it stays that way, so that I don't have to like feel like I've not completed it, but as of now, I have completed this series, and I probably will say more about it in like a wrap-up, but like, to be totally honest, I just want to move on from it, and for the sake of this video, my thoughts are just that it's kind of like a disappointing end, just because I had hoped it would be more. Like, I had hoped that I would really enjoy like the finales of like all of these. The Simon Snow series is the first book that I read because of BookTube, and it's one of the first things I read and like talked about on my BookTube channel when I very first started my BookTube channel. So like, it kind of has like, I don't know, I just kind of thought like it deserves to be in like my big series finale kind of video. In terms of like what I'm reading on BookTube and for BookTube, this was the first series that I picked up and like really talked about on BookTube, and that I picked up specifically because I heard people on BookTube talking about it. I feel like, you know, we've finally come full circle, but like, I just don't care. It's unfortunate, but like, these things happen, you know. I feel like if I'd read it sooner, maybe, but as it is, I'm totally content, I think, just keeping the first book and getting rid of the rest. I realise I look pretty tired. I'm exhausted. So I might talk about this more in like my monthly or bi-monthly wrap-ups. Like, it would be more fun if I'd hated it and rated it like 1 star or something, so I could actually rant about it. As it is, I'm just so nothing about it. I think at least I'm glad to be like leaving that now, I guess now outdated part of like my taste just in the past. Like, it's done. I don't have to pick it up again. I can tick it off my series tracker. I can get it off my spreadsheet, and like, it's not this thing hanging over me that like I still need to do. It's done. We're done. And on that note, do you know what we're picking up next? I'm so ready for this ending. I'm honestly not sure. I think we started too strong. I'm not sure anything can top Joe Abercrombie. But I feel like after reading just some Simon Snowy, you know, I have taken the cover off already, but I'm picking up Crowfall by Ed McDonald. This is the 3rd and final book in the Ravensmark series. Also, this is like literally like my favourite colour. Beautiful. And the pages. I have an edition of this that does not have sprayed edges that I really want to read, because like I keep feeling like I'm gonna put like a handprints on this edition, like I'm gonna ruin the sprayed edges. And also my other edition has Morse code written in the front from the author, and I want to know what it says, and I can't find that edition. So it's probably in the stack, and I'm probably gonna have to tackle the stack, but for now I'm only like 20 pages in. I did read like the little series recap right at the very start of the book, and I have to say I read that and one of the characters' names in there is wrong, but we're not going to go into that. Like if somebody reads that actually needing it, you're going to be confused. But yeah, again, I can't really spoil anything about this, but I guess what this series kind of is, this is like a really, it's a high fantasy, but it's kind of, but also it's kind of like detective noir stuff, at least the first two, and it's exceedingly grimdark. It's just wonderfully grimdark. It's so, I always want to say it's so miserable, but the place in this that is so affected by magic that it's just like a horrible wasteland is actually called the Misery, which I feel like is appropriate. And I know not everyone's going to agree with this because like it's all to do with taste, but it feels so good to go from like kind of like a wholesome, I don't know, jokey like early 20s kind of like people in their like uni days kind of low fantasy set in London, to this, to just ultimate grimdark, miserable, horrible, disgusting all the time. Give it to me. Like, this is what I want, this is what I live for. I already know that I'm changing some of my like reading goals and reading habits for the back end of this year, but also for next year. I already know what some of like my reading goals and changes are going to be, specifically because of like, I guess, things I've just learned from doing this and like the books I've read here, because going from like a 5-star to like this was not it, and then going back to this and feeling so refreshing. It's like, I know my taste, I do know my taste, and I keep picking up books that I read for booktubey reasons that I just really don't need to. So I'm getting back into me. I just need to do me. And this book is very me. And I'm hoping so much that this is the kind of ending that I want for this series. I hope it's horrible and wonderful all at the same time. I can't say anything about the series because it would be major spoilers. Yeah, I literally don't know anything at this point. It's kind of just been like a little bit of a recap. These books are very fast. They do have very big font as well, so like it's probably not as long as it looks either. And I'm just so hyped to read this. Honestly, I wish I could read right now, but like, look at these bags. I need to sleep. But yeah, this is going to be my, I need to stop pressing this against my face because I'm wearing moisturiser. So this is going to be my third and final book for this vlog. I will check in when I have some sort of sufficient thoughts or feelings, which with this book I am expecting. But right now, I'm going to go to sleep. Hello! I'm so sorry for coming at you with like no lenses because once again, I look like that fucking dog. It is what it is. Either way, I have been making pretty good progress with this book. I am currently on page 276, so I literally only have like this much to go. And the book is definitely giving me what I expected, but I think one thing that I've just kind of figured out is that I think like when you have obviously the first book in a series where the characters at that point, like, they don't necessarily know what the story's going to be. They don't necessarily know like what they're facing or how to combat it or anything like that. And I feel like that feeling at the beginning of like the first book in a series of being very small and everything being very unknown and unsure and like there's so much potential of like what's yet to come. With this book, it's very much like at this point you kind of all the mysteries have been more or less unraveled. I feel like going into this book it's very clear like what the actions are and what the outcome needs to be. I don't know, I feel like it's less it's less not scary but less horrible when it's kind of like the main characters are now such big players on the board that it's kind of like, not that it feels less threatening, but you know when you have like that sort of cosmic horror-y feeling where it's like you are so small and insignificant compared to whatever is out there that like you don't even register. You're not even a thought, you're not even an ant, you are like a speck and they will never even know that you are there. I love that about cosmic horror. And like the first book kind of has that feeling throughout like the majority of it, and there's little like hints of that in like book 2, but I feel like it's faded by this point, and I feel like I kind of preferred that. I do understand that that is just how it has to be. It's kind of like in anything is that your main characters, they gain knowledge and skills and power and not necessarily allies when it comes to this book, but you kind of get my drift. Even though the situation is sort of far more horrible, I feel like everyone feels just so much more assured in what they're doing. Even if they're not, they kind of are. It's not like books 1 and 2 where people are running about trying to figure out what's going on, who's who, that sort of thing. So for what the book is, because I understand it kind of has to be that, I am still enjoying it. I will say there have been like some weird new characters introduced that I'm very interested in, and in my head I'm thinking like I feel we might end up getting, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm kind of thinking like, is this basically there's like a new group of characters that are not like any other characters that have been in the book so far. We've been told some like background information, almost like lore about these new characters, and I'm just waiting for it to bite everyone in the ass. I feel like the book does not have time or space to really go into that, but like I wish it would. I almost wish they'd come a book earlier so that we could have seen just like it would kind of raise this question of like how far are you willing to let smaller evils happen to combat bigger evil, which I like about this book, because there is a lot of that. There's a lot of that across like this whole series, but just specifically the way it is done with these characters would just be so... I would honestly almost want to read like a whole subplot about that. I can't say what it is, but like that... I feel like I just like when those sorts of like little background plot points pop up, because we've got like little hints and bits at it, but I'm thinking, is it ever gonna become an actual like on the page, oh this is an issue, or are we just going to keep hinting that it's going on in the background? So there is a lot to like there, and I will say I do have some theories, because there's this little thing that's been happening, and it's been happening across like the whole series, but it feels different now. It's happening in a different way, and I don't know whether it's just because it's happening more prevalently because of some things the main character is doing. I know this is so vague, but the point is it so has to go where I'm thinking, and if it does, scenes like that, scenes like what I'm expecting to get, like I'm waiting for the moment that this thing becomes more of a thing. When it does, I'm just gonna be like, I hope it leaves me an emotional wreck, because it totally has the potential to, depending on the execution, because it's tying together 2 tropes that I really, really like, and I wish I could tell you what they are. This is the 3rd book in a series, so I can't. So yeah, I'm so enjoying it so far, and I feel like I'm getting through it really, really quickly. I still don't know whether I like this. I definitely don't like it as much as book 1. Book 1 was book 1. Book 1 was so good. I can't tell whether I like it more or less than book 2. It's very different in scope and like what's going on. It totally depends on the ending, because if it plays into all of my like favorite tragic, devastating little tropes in a way that would, I don't know, emotionally scar me, I would love that. Yeah, I feel like if it kind of goes sort of at the level it's been going, I feel like even though I'm really enjoying it, I feel like it might end up being my least favourite, but... So yeah, I really do not have very far to go now. I feel like we're coming to the end of this vlog, and it's probably for the best, because I have no idea how much footage I filmed, and I have a feeling this is going to be a chunky one, so... With that, I am going to stop rambling, but yeah, I'm so glad I picked this up, but I am really hoping that before we get to the end, it, I'm hoping for like a knife in the heart. Like I need it. Hey, so this might be the last update because I actually finished the book. So I realised I didn't really check in as much with this one as with the others. I just think maybe I had less to say that wasn't like specific to the story. Ultimately, I did like this one, but I think in like classic me fashion, I like the books in this series in like descending order, so the first one being my favourite and this one being my least favourite. And it's not to say that I didn't still like it. This is like still a fantastic series and I would still recommend this. Hint. I think it's just partially that, and I'm not sure whether I've just built it up to be so much grimmer and darker in my mind. Like, this was still a very grimdark series. I just kind of thought that the ending we would get, and again, no spoilers, I kind of thought it would be like just different or more grim or like more of a challenging read, something like that. I'm not 100% sure. I can't really say what I want to say about it without sort of hinting at what kind of ending it is. I think I was just expecting different, and I'm not sure whether I noticed this as much in the first books because this is told in first person, and so a lot of the style of writing I think is supposed to be in a way that the main character would speak if they were writing. But I think part of the downside of that is that sometimes the prose is just not fantastic. There were a few times when I noticed that like almost the same sentence would be repeated like a paragraph later, and in my head my first thought was that is this something that's been, you've gone through multiple drafts and you've moved it about and you've forgotten that you've got it in twice, and sometimes we would get like a description of something at the end of one chapter and then at the beginning of the very next chapter we would be given it as though it were like new information, and I'm never quite sure whether it's just that it's the character's nature to speak like that, or whether this just had like slightly jankier editing than like the previous two. I think I did notice it a little bit in book 2. I just think that a few little contributing things meant that I didn't enjoy this one as much as book 2 or book 1, which is still my favourite. However, I still did love this series, and there were parts of this that like really did hit. I feel like I just wanted more of a conclusion than this book offered, and I feel like there is room for like potential sequels or continuations, or like not necessarily with the same characters for varying reasons. But I feel like there are more stories in this world slash setting given the way that things left off. So I think I expected this to be just more rounded out and like more finite, as opposed to leaving things open for like a potential future sequel series or spin-off or something. I think I mentioned it in one of the clips though. There was like, right from the start, this thing that you've been seeing happen since book 1. It just had a different vibe about it come this book, and then there were so many little hints dropped throughout this book that I was like, I'm so on to what this book is going to do. And then when it did the thing that I was expecting it to do, normally I tend to feel like, oh, I've seen it coming, but in this case it's like the kind of trope that I really, really like, and so getting to actually see it, just like the payoff, yes. Yes. So bits like that were fantastic, and bits like that I really, really enjoyed. And there were characters in this that I think I really feel like I do need to at some point go back and reread book 1, because some of them come so far. Like, some of them are so changed in so many ways. I am really, really glad that I finished this series. It is still one of my favourite, I guess, fantasy series. As a grimdark as well, I feel like it's very unique among like other grimdark books that I have read. I have recommended this to several people over the past like week. Mixed praise from me, I think, but yeah, I think I ended up giving this just like maybe like a straight 4 stars. And again, I'm gonna have to be so vague. There was another like a kind of minor plot point that didn't really get addressed that I like, and I almost think it's creepier that it didn't get addressed. But there were some new characters, kind of, that got introduced in this book that just, there's just these weird little gross like cosmic horror-y type hints dropped about just the nature of their existence, and it's just fascinating. There's so many little tiny parts of this book that are just so fascinating, and like, I don't know, I just think you need to read it. Honestly, if you like any sort of like gross, grim, dark, very, very grim, bleak kind of horror, sometimes body horror, a lot of body horror actually, in your like high fantasy, totally give this one a go. Final books in a series tend to be very full on. I feel like they rely on you remembering like everything from the books before, and I can't remember if I mentioned this. This book does have a summary of what happens in book 1 and book 2, like really briefly at the start of this, and it's incorrect. I don't know how else to say it other than the little like catching you up to speed at the start of this book is wrong. It gets the names of the antagonists from book 1 and book 2 swapped around. Don't know how that happened. So, good for me. I do actually remember what happened, because if I'd read that, I think I would have been really confused, because I would have been like, this is a different antagonist. Did I misremember something? Like, if I didn't have that memory, I would have been so confused. But I feel like at the end of this, like, I'm slightly drained. Weirdly, mostly from the YA. The book that I thought it would take me the least time to read, I thought I could plow through the Rainbow Rowell in like, what, like a day or two? I did not think it would take me as long as it did. I didn't want to pick it up. I didn't want to reread it. My brain didn't want to retain the information. And so going from that onto this was such a welcome change from that. But honestly, my brain is just dead. So I feel like this portion of the wrap-up might be just a little bit askew. That said though, I did really enjoy doing this. While it is very full on to complete 3 series, like one after the other, I am really glad that I've like, this month I've just finished 3 whole series. Like, they're done. I've completed them. I've ticked them off. I feel like with that much said, and I totally did realise something as well doing this, and I can't remember anything. I can't remember if I actually put it in any of the clips or not. I don't remember whether I just thought about it really hard or whether I actually said it. But a thing that I thought about really hard is that I do just know what books I like. And I just keep not forgetting the books that I like, but forgetting to trust myself that I will know what books I will like. I think I just need to like be like, you know what, just focus on the books that I definitely like, because I knew I would like this, and I knew I would like Joe Abercrombie. And I feel like finishing these series, it's like 2 of them I feel very accomplished for reading, and I feel very glad to have read. I could not care less whether I'd read that Rainbow Rowell book or not though. No hate to it. It's a fine series, and I feel like I still do have like kind of a nostalgic place here, I guess, for the first book in the series. I will always appreciate that book, but I don't need the rest of them, and I don't think I would have been unhappy if I had just never read it. I should just stop reading books that I think might be like a fine 3-star read that I'm just reading for pointless reasons, like to finish a series. Like, did I need to finish that series? I would have liked to. I'm glad that I did tick it off, but if I could go back in time and say, yeah, you're not going to get anything from this, just don't read it, that might be better. I could have read something else. Maybe I got an extra thing out of this vlog that I didn't expect to get. So I feel like I'm gonna have to wrap up there because this is starting to get rambly, and mainly because my brain is fried. But hey, at least that's 3 series that I've been reading for so long that I finally finished. I finally read them. Not that I don't have like another, what, like 7 Joe Abercrombie books to read through. We'll just pretend that that doesn't exist for now. Otherwise, these series are completed. It was a journey. There were a lot of feelings, good and bad. Would I do this again? Maybe. Hopefully I don't ever get into a situation where I have so many ongoing series that I need to do this again. That's maybe the takeaway. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, leave me like a little stabby dagger or something, because I've read some very stabby books for this vlog. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!